The villagers always said, "Don't go near the woods after sunset." That's when she comes out. The air was thick with fear every time someone mentioned the Whispering Woods. People walked faster when they passed by the edge of the trees. Children were told stories of a wicked witch who lived deep in the forest. Her name was Velmira. Velmira had once been a beautiful young woman who lived among the villagers. She had bright silver hair, pale skin like winter snow, and deep blue eyes that sparkled like stars. But something happened long ago that changed her forever. No one knew the full truth, only that she vanished into the woods one stormy night and returned many years later. But she wasn't the same. Her beauty had turned eerie. Her eyes no longer sparkled, they burned. Her face was still pale, but now it seemed cold and ghostly, like a statue carved from ice. Since then, strange things began happening. Animals disappeared, crops rotted overnight, and people heard whispers when they walked near the forest. "She's watching," they said. "She's always watching." The only person who didn't believe the stories was a young girl named Clara. Clara was 15, stubborn and curious. She lived with her grandmother Agnes in a small white cottage near the edge of the village. Agnes always warned her not to go into the forest. "There are things in those woods, Clara, things you don't understand." But Clara had grown tired of the warnings. One morning, after yet another night of howling winds and flickering lights, near the forest, she decided to find out the truth for herself. She packed a small bag with bread, water, and a lantern. She wore her thick white cloak and tied her blonde hair back. The sky was cloudy, and the wind had a chill, but she was not afraid. She left a note for her grandmother, "Gone to the woods. I'll be back before sunset. Love, Clara." With a deep breath, she stepped onto the path that led into the Whispering Woods. At first, everything seemed normal. The trees were tall and silent. The ground was covered in brown leaves, and the air smelled of pine. But the deeper she walked, the stranger things became. The trees grew closer together, twisting like they were whispering secrets. The wind carried soft voices that weren't her own. Clara stopped and looked around. "Just the wind," she told herself. Then she saw something. A small black feather floated down from the trees. She picked it up. It was warm. Suddenly, a voice called out softly, "Clara!" She turned quickly. No one was there. "Who's there?" she shouted. No answer. Her heart beat faster. She kept walking. The forest grew darker even though it was still morning. Her lantern flickered. Then, through the thick trees, she saw it a house. It stood on twisted wooden legs, like roots pulled from the earth. It was crooked, blackened by age, and covered in strange symbols. A large crow sat on the roof, watching her. She stepped closer. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and herbs. Bottles filled with colored liquids lined the shelves. Bones hung from strings like decorations. And there she was, Velmira. The witch stood tall and thin, her silver hair long and wild. Her skin was still pale, but her eyes glowed red like embers. She wore a long black robe with sleeves that dragged on the floor. "You've come," she said softly, her voice like silk and smoke. Clara froze. I wanted to know the truth," Clara said. Velmira smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Truth is dangerous," she said, circling Clara. "Truth can change everything." Clara held her ground. "Why does everyone fear you?" she asked. Velmira stopped walking. Her face changed. Sadness or anger? It was hard to tell. "They fear what they don't understand. I was once like them, pure, hopeful, but they took everything from me." Clara listened carefully. "What happened to you?" she asked. Velmira turned away and waved her hand. The smoke in the room gathered in the air and formed a picture. A young Velmira, smiling, holding a book of spells. "I learned magic. Real magic. But they called me a demon. A monster. They burned my home. Killed my family. I ran into the woods and found the shrine. The Dark One offered me power. I said yes." Clara felt a chill. "You hurt people now," she said. "You scare the village. They hurt me first," Velmira snapped. Her voice was cold now. "This forest listens to me. The trees protect me. The wind sings my name. I am not evil. I am just Free. Clara looked around the room. She saw things, dark things. Dolls made from hair and sticks. Drawings of pain. Bottles of blood. But, you are hurting innocent people, Clara said quietly. Velmira looked at her closely. You have power, Clara. I can feel it. Stay with me. Learn from me. I can teach you things the world will never offer. Clara's heart raced. Part of her was curious, but the other part, the stronger part, knew this was wrong. I should go, she said, stepping back. Velmira's eyes narrowed. You've seen too much. If you leave, you'll tell them, and they'll come for me again. I won't tell, Clara promised, but the witch didn't believe her. She raised her hand. Shadows gathered behind her. The crow on the roof cawed loudly. Clara turned and ran. The forest came alive. Trees moved. Roots reached for her feet. Whispers screamed in her ears. She tripped and fell. The lantern shattered. Darkness. Suddenly, a light. Clara looked up. The moon had broken through the clouds, casting silver light on the path. She ran again, heart pounding, until she reached the edge of the forest. Behind her, the woods grew quiet. The whispers stopped. She stumbled into her grandmother's arms. Clara, Agnes cried. What have you done? Clara looked back at the forest. She's real, Grandma, and she's angry. Agnes helped her inside. They locked the doors and lit candles. Outside, in the distance, a long, cold howl echoed through the trees. The evil witch was awake, and she wasn't going to forget Clara. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, staring into the darkness. The forest loomed in the distance like a wall of shadows. Every crack of a branch, every moan of the wind made her heart jump. Her grandmother, Agnes, lit candles around the house and whispered old prayers, ones Clara had never heard before. Grandma, Clara said quietly, who is Velmira really? Agnes looked up, her eyes tired. She was one of us long ago, before you were born. Her parents were healers, good people, but Velmira always wanted more. She wanted secrets no one should know. She told me they burned her home and killed her family. Agnes sighed. Yes, because she had already made the forest hers. The day her mother died, strange things began to happen. People found animal bones buried in their gardens. Children spoke of dreams filled with fire. Then one morning, the priest's wife vanished. They found her days later, her face frozen in fear. That's when the village turned on Velmira. Clara felt her stomach twist. She wanted to believe there was something good in Velmira, but the memory of her glowing red eyes and the way the trees moved around her was hard to forget. Agnes poured a small cup of tea and handed it to Clara. Drink. You need rest. But even when Clara finally drifted off, her sleep was haunted. She dreamed of the woods, of voices chanting, of Velmira standing in a circle of fire, her face lit by candlelight, her voice whispering Clara's name over and over. The next morning, Clara woke to shouting. She ran outside and saw people gathered near the village square. Smoke rose from the center. A goat had been found dead, its body marked with strange symbols. It's her again, shouted old Marcus, the blacksmith. The witch has returned. She's angry, said another. Something woke her up. Clara felt cold. She had woken her. She had gone into Velmira's world and come out alive. The mayor stood on a wooden box, trying to calm the crowd. We don't know it was her. Don't panic. But panic had already begun. Mothers clutched their children tightly. Men grabbed tools, anything sharp they could find. People lit small fires and placed charms around their homes. Clara turned and ran back to her cottage. Agnes was already packing herbs and old scrolls into a basket. What are you doing? Clara asked. We need protection, Agnes said. I'm going to the shrine on the hill. But that place is sacred, that's why I'm going. If Velmira has returned, we need the old ways. Clara followed her grandmother through the village and up the narrow path to the stone shrine. It was a forgotten place, covered in vines, with broken statues and a cracked altar. But Agnes knew where to step, what to touch. She lit incense and began to whisper words in a language Clara didn't know. The air grew still. Clara looked around. What are you doing? I'm calling for help. From the guardians who once protected us. before Velmira turned them away. As the incense burned, the smoke twisted into shapes. A figure appeared, a woman made of light and wind. She had no face, only eyes that glowed like stars. Agnes bowed deeply. The spirit turned to Clara. You were the one who entered her dwelling. Clara nodded. I didn't mean to cause harm. I just wanted to know the truth. You've seen what lies beneath her sadness, the spirit said. But her heart is blackened now. She has made a pact. She draws her power from the roots of the forest deep, old magic that even we cannot touch. Is there a way to stop her? Clara asked. There is one way, the spirit replied. But it requires courage, pain, and choice. Clara's throat felt dry. What kind of choice? You'll see, child. But beware. If she calls your name again, do not answer. The spirit vanished. Agnes looked shaken. She sat down slowly. The forest will come for us now. She knows you escaped. She won't let that go. That night, the wind howled louder than before. Windows shattered. Chickens vanished. One family's barn collapsed without warning. The village was under siege, though they couldn't see their enemy. Then came the voice. It echoed through the trees, over the rooftops, through the cracks of every door. Clara, soft at first, then stronger. Clara covered her ears, but the voice was inside her head. Clara, come back to me. She curled up on the floor of her room, whispering to herself, I won't answer. I won't answer. I won't. But something began to happen to her. Her skin tingled. Her heartbeat echoed louder. She could feel Velmira's magic inside her, like a seed beginning to grow. She screamed. Agnes rushed in and saw Clara's eyes, bright blue, now glowing faintly red. No, Agnes whispered. She's marked you. Clara fell asleep from exhaustion. In her dreams, she was in the woods again. But this time, she was not running. She was standing beside Velmira, watching as crows circled overhead, watching as villagers burned in shadows. She couldn't stop. Velmira turned to her. You are like me, Clara. They will never understand you. But I will. Come back. Learn the truth. Learn your power. No, Clara whispered. I'm not like you. Velmira touched her chest. You will be. When Clara woke, her hands were burned. Small red marks, shaped like leaves and vines. Agnes wrapped them in cloth. You have a choice, child. Run from her, or face her. Clara looked toward the window. The forest was quiet again, but she knew that silence meant Velmira was preparing something worse. She would not run. The time had come to face the evil witch. To end what she had begun. The sun barely rose the next day. A thick gray mist covered the village like a heavy blanket. Birds didn't sing. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Clara sat in her room, her hands still wrapped in cloth, her eyes staring out toward the forest. She had made her decision. She would go back. I have to stop her, she said quietly to herself. I started this. Downstairs, Agnes was boiling herbs, her face pale with worry. She had seen that look in Clara's eyes before. The same look Velmira once had, the look of someone who carried the weight of 1,000 voices and still chose to walk forward. You won't survive if you go alone, Agnes said without looking up. I'm not afraid, Clara replied. You should be. Clara placed a hand on her grandmother's shoulder. You taught me to face things, not run from them. Agnes took a deep breath. Then she reached into a small wooden box and pulled out a necklace, a small stone shaped like a teardrop, glowing faintly white. This is moonstone, Agnes explained. It will keep your heart clear. As long as you wear it, Velmira cannot fully enter your mind. Clara tied the necklace around her neck and felt warmth pulse through her chest. It gave her strength. She packed her bag again, bread, water, the moonstone, and one last gift from Agnes, a small book wrapped in leather, filled with ancient protective chants. You may not be a witch, her grandmother whispered, but you have light inside you. Clara hugged her tightly, then turned toward the woods. The villagers watched her from behind curtains and fences, but none dared stop her. Some whispered prayers. Others shook their heads. She walked alone toward the whispering woods. The trees welcomed her with silence. The same path she had taken days ago now felt darker, heavier. Roots twisted beneath her feet like veins. The whispering had returned, but this time, it wasn't soft. It was angry. She comes, she brings the flame. Clara pressed forward. Hours passed, though she couldn't tell the time anymore. The sky was hidden by thick branches. Strange figures moved between the trees. Eyes watched her from behind bark, but she didn't stop. Finally, she reached the heart of the forest. Velmira's house was no longer on crooked legs. It had grown. Its walls were taller, covered in thorny vines. The symbols etched into the wood now glowed red. A circle of skulls surrounded the clearing, and in the center stood Velmira waiting. She wore a crown of bones. Her silver hair flowed wildly. Her eyes burned brighter than before. She smiled when she saw Clara. "You came back," she said, stepping forward. "I knew you would." Clara stood tall. "This has to end." Velmira raised an eyebrow. "End? Oh no, this is only the beginning. You are waking, child. You feel it, don't you? The power beneath your skin, the fire in your blood. I'm nothing like you. You're exactly like me," Velmira said calmly. "They will never accept you, but I will. I will teach you. You'll never be afraid again." Clara pulled out the moonstone and held it tight. "No, I'm not afraid now. I came to stop you." Velmira laughed. It was a sound that made the trees tremble. "Stop me?" she whispered. "You don't even know who you are." She snapped her fingers, and the forest changed. The ground cracked open, revealing twisted roots soaked in black liquid. The trees bent inwards, forming a dome above them. A red mist swirled around the clearing. Clara took a step back. "You are a child of the forest, Clara," Velmira said. "Your mother, she was one of us." Clara's heart skipped. "What?" She hid it. She ran from her gift. "She married a simple farmer and raised you among sheep and soup. But the blood, the power, it's inside you. That's why you could enter my house. That's why I couldn't destroy you." Clara shook her head. "You're lying. Ask your grandmother. She knows." Clara's grip on the moonstone tightened. Velmira raised her arms. Shadows gathered around her, rising like smoke. "You can fight me," she said, "but you will lose. Or you can join me, rule beside me. We can burn away the lies and build something new. Just say yes." "No," Velmira's smile vanished. "Then, die with them." She threw her hands forward, and the shadows shot toward Clara. They screamed like dying birds. Clara opened her grandmother's book and read the first chant out loud. Her voice shook, but the words glowed on the page. A circle of white light burst around her, stopping the shadows in their tracks. Velmira growled, "You little fool." Clara kept chanting. The shadows hissed and twisted, unable to pass through the barrier of light. Velmira screamed and sent a wave of red fire toward her. Clara raised the moonstone. The fire split apart and vanished. The ground beneath them shook. The forest roared. "Stop!" Clara shouted. "You don't have to do this." But Velmira's eyes were full of rage. "They burned everything I loved. I will never forgive them." "I know," Clara said, "but revenge only leaves you emptier." For a moment, Velmira hesitated. Her eyes softened. Then something changed. A shadow larger than any other rose behind her. A creature made of roots and fire. It growled, hungry for blood. Clara felt that this was the source of Velmira's true power. The dark spirit she had made her pact with. The spirit whispered in Velmira's ear. She nodded slowly, then pointed at Clara. "She is the sacrifice," Velmira said. The creature lunged. Clara dropped the book and held the moonstone with both hands. She closed her eyes and screamed not in fear, but in power. She screamed for the light, for the truth, for her mother, for the village. And something answered. A blast of white fire exploded from her chest, slamming into the shadow creature. It roared and twisted, shrieking as it burned. Velmira screamed, too, falling to her knees. The forest shook violently. The vines caught fire. The sky turned silver, and then all was still. The creature was gone. Velmira lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Her crown of bones was broken. Her eyes no longer glowed. She looked old or tired. Human. Clara stepped forward. Velmira looked up at her. "What have you done?" "I broke the bond," Clara said. "The forest doesn't belong to you anymore." Velmira tried to stand, but her strength was gone. Go, Clara said quietly. Leave this place, or stay, and try to heal. Velmira looked around her at the burnt trees, the broken symbols, the silence. She nodded once. Perhaps. It's time. Clara turned and walked away. The forest parted for her. The mist lifted. Birds began to sing again when she stepped out. Into the sunlight, the village was waiting, and behind her, the whispering woods began to breathe again. When Clara stepped out of the forest, she looked different. Her hair was the same, her face was the same, but something had changed in her eyes. They hold power now, a quiet strength. The villagers gasped when they saw her. She's alive. She went into the woods and came back. Children peeked out from behind their mothers' skirts. Men dropped their tools and stared. Even the mayor stepped back in surprise. No one said a word until Agnes pushed through the crowd and wrapped Clara in her arms. I thought I lost you, Agnes whispered, holding her tightly. I'm okay, Clara said softly. But it's over. The creature is gone. Velmira, she's not the same anymore. People began to murmur. She defeated the witch. She destroyed the demon. What happened there? Clara looked up. She was tired. Her hands still burned. But she forced herself to speak. She made a pact with something dark. Something older than the forest. It controlled her, twisted her. But it's gone now. The forest is free again. The villagers looked uncertain. Some still clutched their charms. Others stared at Clara's glowing moonstone and the mark on her palm, shaped like a tiny silver leaf. She's one of them, someone whispered. Agnes stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. She's one of us. But doubt had already begun to creep in. Later that night, as the fires burned low and the village settled into an uneasy silence, Clara sat on the porch of their cottage, staring into the darkness. She could still feel Velmira's voice echoing in her mind. Not words, just pain. Agnes joined her and sat down slowly. You knew, Clara said without looking at her. Agnes nodded. About your mother? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I was trying to protect you. She didn't want you to live in fear. She gave up her gift, married your father, and left the old ways behind. But you were born with it anyway. Clara looked down at her hands. What does it mean? It means you have a choice, Agnes said. You can ignore it, live quietly, or you can learn to control it. Use it for good. But it won't be easy. Clara didn't answer. Her heart was heavy. The next morning, they found smoke rising from the north end of the village. Someone had burned Velmira's old cottage to the ground. By the time Clara arrived, it was nothing but ash and broken stones. A few villagers stood around the ruins, silent and uneasy. Who did this? She asked. And no one spoke, but their eyes said enough. She's gone, said the mayor finally. That's what matters. Clara stepped closer to the ruins. She knelt and sifted through the ashes with her hands until she found it a piece of Velmira's black cloak, half burnt. She held it for a moment, then let the wind take it. That night, Clara had another dream. She stood in the forest again, but this time, the trees were alive with color. Flowers bloomed where shadows once crept. The shrine was whole, and the roots were strong, and Velmira stood beside her not as a witch, but as a woman. Her hair was clean, her eyes soft. She said nothing, only nodded once, and faded into the light. Clara woke with tears in her eyes. The next few weeks were strange. The forest slowly healed. Birds returned. The wind no longer whispered names. Villagers began to go near the trees again, though they still moved carefully. Clara helped rebuild what had been lost. She worked in the gardens. She helped deliver food. But some villagers still avoided her. Some no longer met her eyes. She's touched by the forest, they'd whisper. Witch blood. Even the children played differently around her now, curious but distant. And Clara noticed other things too. When she touched broken plants, they began to heal. When she closed her eyes, she could feel the heartbeat of the earth beneath her feet. The gift was growing. Agnes began teaching her the old ways. Every night by candlelight, they read from ancient books. They learned protection spells, healing chants, and the names of the stars. But Clara's heart was torn. I'm not sure I want this, she told her grandmother one night. Agnes placed a hand on hers. You don't have to want it. You only have to be honest with it. This power, it's part of you. What you do with it, that's your story to write. One morning, a knock came at their door. It was the mayor, along with 2 councilmen. Their faces were serious. We'd like you to leave, the mayor said. Agnes stood, shocked. What are you saying? Not forever, one man added quickly. Just until things settle. People are uneasy. They think Clara's presence is disturbing. Clara felt the words like a knife. You think I'm dangerous? You've brought peace, the mayor said carefully. But peace doesn't erase fear. You understand, don't you? Clara looked at Agnes, then back at the men. Yes, she said. I do. That night, Clara packed her things. Agnes hugged her tightly. I'll be here when you come back. No, Clara whispered. She left before sunrise, wearing her cloak and her moonstone. She followed the path past the fields, past the village, and into the woods, not the whispering woods, but the eastern forest, wide and green and open. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew why. She had a gift. She had to learn how to use it, and maybe, one day, return not as a girl the village feared, but as a woman they could trust. As she walked, the trees whispered again, but this time, they whispered her name with warmth. Clara, Clara the brave, Clara the light bringer. The evil witch was gone, but a new witch had begun. Clara walked through the eastern forest for days, guided only by instinct and the quiet pulse of the moonstone that hung around her neck. The trees here were younger, more welcoming than those in the whispering woods. Birds sang freely, and deer watched her from a safe distance. The air smelled of pine and fresh rain. She moved carefully, listening to the wind, feeling the ground beneath her feet. Sometimes she stopped to rest under a tree or by a stream, and each night she made a small fire and read from her grandmother's book of spells and stories. On the 3rd night, as she sat beneath a willow tree, she whispered softly to the flames, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. A witch? A healer? A girl who broke something powerful? Or something else entirely? The fire crackled but gave no answer. In the days that followed, Clara began to change. She didn't notice it at first, but the forest did. Her steps became quieter. Her hearing grew sharper. When she touched the leaves of sick plants, they stood up straighter. When she sang softly to the river, the water shimmered in reply. One evening, Clara found a small village nestled between the hills. It was peaceful and quiet, with only a few houses, a windmill, and a single shop that sold bread and dried fruit. She bought some food with the few coins she had, and the shopkeeper, an old woman named Hattie, looked at her closely. You've been in the woods, Hattie said. Clara nodded. I'm just passing through. You have the look of someone who's seen things most people never should. I suppose I have. Hattie handed her the bread and added a small apple for free. Whatever you're running from, child, I hope you find peace. I'm not running anymore, Clara replied gently, just searching. That night, Clara slept under the stars. She dreamt of Velmira again, only this time, Velmira was walking through a field of flowers. She smiled at Clara. You made the right choice, the witch said softly, but your journey isn't over. When Clara woke up, she wasn't afraid of the dream. The next day, she climbed to the top of a hill. From there, she could see the forest stretching behind her and open fields ahead. In the distance was another village, larger than the last. She remembered her grandmother's words, you have light inside you. Use it. And so she did. Clara entered the new village that afternoon. It was bustling with people, busy markets, and noise. She didn't speak much at first. She found a small inn and offered to help in the kitchen in exchange for a bed. The innkeeper agreed. She stayed for 2 weeks. During that time, she helped a sick boy recover using a tea made from forest herbs. She stopped a barn from burning using a chant she had memorized. She taught a little girl how to listen to birds and understand their song. People began to notice. They whispered her name, but not with fear, with wonder, with hope. They started coming to her asking for help with small things, healing a rash, protecting a home, and calming bad dreams. And Clara helped them, quietly, gently. One day, a traveler arrived. He carried news from many villages. Have you heard? He told the innkeeper. The cursed woods are healing. The dark magic is gone. And the girl who ended it, Clara, some say she's a witch with white fire in her hands. The innkeeper smiled and looked at Clara. We know, she said. She's been staying with us. The traveler's eyes widened. You're the one from the stories? Clara nodded. I didn't come for attention, just to learn. Well, he said, smiling, whatever you are, witch, healer, hero, we could use more people like you. Word spread. Slowly, carefully, people from neighboring towns began to visit. Clara didn't advertise, didn't claim greatness. She just listened and helped. And as time passed, she grew stronger, not in power, but in presence. She learned the plants of the new forest. She listened to the dreams of children. She helped rebuild broken fences and broken hearts. People stopped calling her witch. They started calling her Wise Clara, Clara of the forest, the girl who faced the dark and didn't break. Then one day, as she was gathering herbs, she felt something tug at her heart. It was soft, familiar. She looked to the west, where the whispering woods lay far beyond hills and rivers. I think it's time, she whispered. She returned to the village she had left. It had changed too. New houses had been built. Children laughed without fear. The shrine had been cleaned and repaired. And Agnes was waiting, standing on the porch, tears in her eyes. I knew you'd come back. I had to, Clara said, hugging her. There's still work to do. Clara was welcomed with caution, but not hatred. She helped where she could. She taught what she had learned. And slowly, the village healed inside and out. The forest remained quiet, but alive. Velmira was never seen again, though some said they still felt her spirit in the wind, watching, perhaps even guiding. Clara built a new cottage near the edge of the forest, a white stone house with blue windows and a garden full of healing plants. People came to her not with fear, but with trust. She never called herself a witch. She called herself a protector, a listener, a learner. And though the mark of power never left her hands, she used it not for control, but for kindness. One night, many years later, an old woman stood at the edge of the forest. Her hair was silver now, her moonstone still glowing faintly around her neck. Children gathered around her to hear the stories. Tell us about the evil witch, one girl said. Clara smiled gently. She wasn't always evil. Sometimes pain turns people into something they're not meant to be. But even in the darkest places, light can grow again. Is that how you beat her? Asked a small boy. Clara looked toward the trees, which whispered softly in the breeze. I didn't beat her, she said. I forgave her, and the wind carried her words deep into the heart of the forest where the past rested, and peace finally bloomed. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.